What's up, people? In this video we're going to do this, the story of your enslavement by Piero Giorgio. Okay, so like, is this Stefan Molyneux or something? I'm not really sure. Yeah, I don't know what this is or who this is. I've heard of this guy, Stefan Molyneux, something. Who told me to do this? Prashant H. Ha 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 ha. Stu, I knew your reaction would be funny AF, man. Thank you for the video. Dude, I'm pretty curious about your reaction to this. Here we go, babies and baberinos. We will watch this. If you guys have any other recommendations for videos or YouTubers, let me know.
This is the story of your enslavement. How it came to be, and how you can finally be free. Like all animals, human beings want to dominate and exploit the resources around them. At first we mostly hunted and fished and ate off the land, but then something magical and terrible happened to our minds. We became, alone among the animals, afraid of death and of future loss. And this was the start of a great tragedy and an even greater possibility. You see, when we become afraid of death, of injury and imprisonment, we become controllable and so valuable in a way that no other resource could ever be. The greatest resource for any human being to control is not natural resources or tools or animals or land, but other human beings. You can frighten an animal because animals are afraid of pain in the moment, but you cannot frighten an animal with a loss of liberty, with torture or imprisonment in the future, because animals have very little sense of tomorrow. You cannot threaten a cow with torture or a sheep with death. You cannot swing a sword at a tree and scream at it to produce more fruit, or hold a burning torch to a field and demand more wheat. You cannot get more eggs by threatening a hen, but you can get a man to give you his eggs by threatening him. This human farming has been the most profitable and destructive occupation throughout history, and it is now reaching its
Alright, animals also don't have possessions, right? They don't have like the fear of loss. I don't think it's necessarily the fear of death. If a cow was like, well, I guess you could say dogs have a sense of possession when it comes to like, you know, if any of you have ever had a dog before and you know they have like their toy, right? And some dogs get really possessive of their toy, and you try and like take their toy away from them, they'll like go berserk on you and like growl and whatever, maybe try to bite you. But I think dogs also, they cannot understand the concept of the threat of death, whereas humans, I guess, can. In terms of like this being some like master plan, because I think this is kind of where this is going. It's like the government has a master plan to like keep you enslaved and make you be afraid that they're going to take your stuff or something like that. Like I don't know, maybe he's going somewhere else with that, but like you have to understand is that the world evolved into what it is today, right? This is not a video game where you like selected certain attributes and clicked, you know, generate, and like the world magically like appeared like this. Like, how old is humanity? Like millions of years, right? How old is human civilization as we know it? 5,000, 6,000? That's I don't know, hundreds of generations of people who through trial and error arrived at what we have today, right? A lot of people don't seem to understand that. They think that, which is understandable, of course, because as humans we are fairly nearsighted, right? If we were able to comprehend what would happen in 1,000 years or 1,000 years ago, I think that we would be too afraid of death to be able to function normally, right? Like if you've ever, I don't know about you, but this has happened to me many times where I am become conscious of my own mortality as I'm doing something, and all of a sudden I get hit with this like uncontrollable fear. I'm like, oh my god, shit, it's gonna happen someday. And it just like, I almost like have like a borderline panic attack, right? I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but it happens to me, honestly, like happens to me like every single day. It's kind of fucked up. Like I kind of hate it. But on the other hand, you know, human beings also evolved that trait, right? Because if we didn't have that trait, if we didn't evolve to be like that, what would we do? We wouldn't do anything, right? That's what impels you to constantly strive and to push for more and to try and, I don't want to say make the world a better place, but to do things that will help you get yours, to take chips off the table, so to speak. Is it like a government plot? I don't know. Maybe he'll say something else.
destructive climax. Human society cannot be rationally understood until it is seen for what it is. a series of farms where human farmers own human livestock. Some people get confused because governments provide healthcare and water and education and roads, and thus imagine that there is some benevolence at work. Nothing could be further from the reality. Farmers provide healthcare and irrigation and training to their livestock. Some people get confused because we are allowed certain liberties and thus imagine that our governments protect our freedoms. But farmers plant their crops a certain distance apart to increase their yields and will allow certain animals larger stalls or fields if it means they will produce more meat and milk. In your country, your cat's farm, your farmer grants you certain freedoms not because he cares about your liberties, but because he wants to increase his profits. Are you beginning to see the nature of the cage you were born into? There have been 4 major phases of human farming. The first phase in ancient Egypt was direct and brutal human compulsion. Human bodies were controlled, but the creative productivity of the human mind remained beyond the reach of the whip, and the brand, and the shackles. Slaves remained woefully underproductive and required enormous resources to control. The second phase was the Roman model, wherein slaves were granted some capacity for freedom, ingenuity, and creativity, which raised their productivity. This increased the wealth of Rome, and thus the tax income of the...
All right, so like another thing, the question is, what's the alternative, right? Like, okay, fine, let's say that the government, the US government, which seems to be what he's talking about, the US government is keeping you enslaved. They're giving you just enough so that you can, like, you know, buy your new iPhone and eat McDonald's, and you won't, like, rebel and, like, kick the politicians out of power or something like that, right? Like, this is a very popular theory because, and no offense, Prashant, or like to anybody else who like buys into this, but like it's a very popular theory because once again it's another message that kind of like removes any sort of responsibility from the individual to live a productive life, not valuable, but like a life where they feel like they're getting the most out of their time on this planet, right? For example, if you let's take 2 different beliefs, right? And again, I haven't seen the entire video, I don't know where he's going with this, but like, let's say on the one hand, you believe like, oh, human society is just a series of different type of enslavement by the powers that be. First it was Egypt where they beat you, and then it was Rome where they gave you more freedom, and now it's capitalism where like you have to work a job that you hate so you can buy, you know, fucking your new laptop or like the new like Supreme phone case, you know what I mean? You can choose to believe that, or you can choose to believe that you as an individual have a choice every second of every day to do whatever it is that you want to do, and you have control over your own life. Maybe not complete control over what you get in your life, but you have at least the power to control what you want to do and get as much as you can out of life, and never make any mention of enslavement. Yeah, okay, you're a slave to food also because you need food to eat. You're a slave to water because you need water to stay alive. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I don't know. I don't like this type of message, which I understand why it's popular, like I said, but I don't like it because it gives unsuccessful people yet another reason to never try. It's like, well, actually in ancient Egypt they used to beat people, and now today like we have capitalism, so therefore like I never had a chance anyway, and that's why I'm poor and broke and a loser. You know what I mean? It's like that's the message that's being spread here, or so it seems to me. This does not seem like it will end on a happy note unless it's like, and that's why we need to like, you know, all like create an unanimous uprising on the internet and like, you know, blow up the White House or something. Like, FBI, don't come after me. It was an example, all right? I love America.
The Roman government, and with this additional wealth, Rome became an empire, destroying the economic freedoms that fed its power, and collapsed. I'm sure that this does not seem entirely unfamiliar. After the collapse of Rome, the feudal model introduced the concept of livestock ownership and taxation. Instead of being directly owned, peasants farmed land that they could retain as long as they paid off the local warlords. This model eventually broke down due to the continual subdivision of productive land and was destroyed during the enclosure movement when land was consolidated and hundreds of thousands of peasants were kicked off their ancestral lands because new farming techniques made larger farms more productive with fewer people. The increased productivity of the later Middle Ages created the excess food required for the expansion of towns and cities, which in turn gave rise to the modern democratic model of human ownership. As displaced peasants flooded into the cities, a huge stock of cheap human capital became available to the rising industrialists, and the ruling class of human farmers quickly realized that they could make more money by letting their livestock choose their own occupations. Under the democratic model, direct slave ownership has been replaced by the mafia model. The mafia rarely owns businesses directly, but rather sends thugs around once a month to steal from the business owners. You are now allowed to choose your own occupation, which raises your productivity, and thus the taxes you can pay to your masters.
Value this time in your life, kids. Because this is the time in life when you still have your choices. It goes by so fast. When you're a teenager, you think you can do anything, and you do. Your 20s are a blur. 30s, you raise your family, you make a little money, you think to yourself, I'm in my 20s. 40s, you grow a little pot belly, you grow another chin. The music starts to get too loud. One of your girlfriends from high school becomes a grandmother. 50s, you have a minor surgery, you'll call it a procedure, but it's a surgery. 60s, you'll have a major surgery, the music is still loud, but it doesn't matter because you can't hear it anyway. 70s, you and the wife retired to Fort Lauderdale. Studying dinner at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you have lunch around 10, breakfast the night before, spend most of your time wandering around malls looking for the ultimate soft yogurt and muttering, how come the kids don't call, how come the kids don't call. The 80s, you'll have a major stroke, you end up battling some Jamaican nurse your wife can't stand, but you call mama. Any questions?
Your few freedoms are preserved.
I wonder what movie that is. I kind of want to watch that movie. I really like Billy Crystal. I wonder if he'll mention it in here. Probably not. Hey man, awesome video. By the way, what was that movie you cut to at around 7 minutes with Billy Crystal? I'm commenting on all these videos from now on. Okay, so interesting little tidbit. I remember when I was in, I don't know, high school learning about the Civil War or whatever, whenever I learned about that, they said that like one of the main reasons, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing, probably fucking this up, but like they said that the slave model of farming land or whatever was much more inefficient than, let's say, the worker model, right? Because slaves, they have to be fed, they have to be housed, they have to be clothed, like you have to basically pay for this human being to survive. Whereas if you pay, and it costs a lot more than like, I don't know, $10 a day or like whatever people made back then, right? Whereas if you just pay people for their time and you allow them to work for you temporarily, then you create a lot more opportunities for the economy to grow, right? Because then you're allowing like people to build houses for these people to buy, right? And markets for them to shop in and like whatever. Anyway, there's all these benefits to it. So that's interesting. I'm not saying that's wrong. As far as the mafia coming by once a month, I don't know. Is that like the 20s? He's talking about the actual mafia, or is this somehow like some comparison to like the government collecting taxes? I'm not really sure. But regardless, dude, like, you know, do you want paved roads? Do you want like running water? Do you want electricity? Do you want, you know, police officers? Do you want firefighters? Do you want ambulances? Like, do you want to leave this up to private industry? I do not, personally. Like, do you want the post office? Like, I don't know. I think some government is good. I think, like, I don't want to live in a place with no government. Like, are you kidding me? As corrupt as human beings are, I'm very happy with the way America runs. Like, name one place where the government runs better than America. Fine, you could say like Switzerland. Okay, what do they have, like 3 million people there? Okay, sure. Like, fine. Name a country that has over 200 million people where the government runs as smoothly as it does in America. You know. Anyway, let's watch more.
Because they are profitable to your owners. The great challenge of the democratic model is that increases in wealth and freedom threaten the farmers. The ruling classes initially profit from a relatively free market in capital and labor, but as their livestock become more used to their freedoms and growing wealth, they begin to question why they need rulers at all. Ah well, nobody ever said that human farming was easy. Keeping the taxed livestock securely in the compounds of the ruling classes is a three-phase process. The first is to indoctrinate the young through government, quote, education. As the wealth of democratic countries grew, government schools were universally inflicted in order to control the thoughts and souls of the livestock. The second phase is to turn citizens against each other through the creation of dependent livestock. It is very difficult to rule human beings directly through force, and where it can be achieved, it remains cripplingly unproductive, as can be seen in North Korea. Human beings do not breed well or produce efficiently in direct captivity. But if human beings believe that they are free, then they will produce much more for their farmers. The best way to maintain this illusion of freedom is to put some of the livestock on the payroll of the farmer. Those cows that become dependent on the existing hierarchy will then attack any other cows who point out the violence, hypocrisy, and immorality of human ownership.
Officers positioned Grant face first on the floor with one officer near his head, a second near his back, and a third officer standing nearby. There appeared to be a brief struggle. Then, a 2-year veteran BART officer stands, draws his weapon, and fires.
Freedom is slavery, and slavery is freedom. If you can get the cows to attack each other, whenever anybody brings up the reality of their situation...
Prashant, what did you think I was going to say about this? I'm pretty curious to your reaction to this. Like, come on, dog. Like, okay, the fact that like there was a riot, I don't know what riot that was. Like, there was a riot, a policeman overreacted, shot some guy at point blank who's clearly restrained. Therefore, we should abolish governments, and you know, anybody who directly benefits more from capitalism over somebody else is a farmer and is farming human beings for their time or something, it's a bit of a stretch. And again, like, what is your, like, this human civilization, specifically, let's talk about the United States. The United States evolved the way that it has as a result of the laws that it has on the books. The Constitution, Declaration of Independence, like, that is the American mentality, let's call it, that has put the United States where it is today, right? Which is also why I believe, you can disagree with me if you want, or anybody can disagree, which is that the thoughts that you have in your head are what is going to determine how your life turns out, right? Thoughts determine behavior, behavior determines what you do in your life and how it actually works. Yeah, sure, things like your race matter, your height matters, your skin color matters, you know, how much money you have when you're born matters, fine, all that stuff matters. But what I would argue matters even more than that are the thoughts that you think in your head on a daily basis. If you choose to believe a message like this, like, oh, we're enslaved as human beings, the system is unfair, I never have a chance anyway because, like, some people are on the payroll of the farmers, and, like, why should I even try because I wasn't born with all these advantages, then what do you think your life is going to turn out like, right? Like, let's say, for example, I'll use myself as an example, and this is not the best example, but I'll use it anyway, right? When I was born, I was not a gifted specimen. I was not born with abs, right? I was not born with muscles. I was not born being able to lift as much as I can now or train as hard as I could now, and my body did not look like the way that it was now. Had I said, oh, well, actually, some people are just born genetically more gifted than I am, and the system is against me because McDonald's exists and it's cheap, and there's a Jack in the Box down the street from my house, and whatever, like, all these reasons why I should fail, do you think I would be in shape today? I mean, you know, to be clear, I've been sick for like a month, haven't really trained as hard as I should, not in peak physical condition currently, but give me like 2 weeks here working out in a train, I'm gonna be looking pretty good. No, I believed. I was like, I have control over this. I can choose right now to go to the gym. I can choose to eat healthier food. I can choose to join the football team at school, even though I played probably less than 20 minutes the entire year. I can choose to do that and do the workouts and go train every day for 3 hours and make friends and like have that reference experience for fitness in my life. I can choose, like, every time I've ever gone to the gym is because I have chosen to go to the gym. Nobody has ever held a gun to my head and said, you go to the gym now or I'm gonna kill you. That's never happened, right? To use another example, let's take this YouTube channel, right? I mean, I don't want to take you down memory lane, but I'm gonna take you down memory lane right now, right? These are all of the videos that I've ever created. What happens if we sort by date? Okay, do you guys know what year it is now? Currently, it is August 27, 2019. This YouTube channel has been around over 9 years. Let's say 9 years I've had this YouTube channel. Okay, now I haven't been active on this YouTube channel the entire time, right? There were definitely several multi-year gaps there. But let's talk about the past few months. The past few months, I have strengthened my belief further and further that I will someday find enough, let's call it financial success on the YouTube platform for it to be worth my time. If you look at how much money I'm making now and how many subscribers I have now, and let's call it the competitive landscape now of YouTube, would you think that I have a chance, or that anybody who starts a channel today and starts seriously making videos today has a chance? It's so competitive. There's already people doing what you're doing. You know, you don't have the editing skills. You're not like good looking enough. You're not this enough, right? Like, there's no chance that I would ever succeed if I believe that. But I have in my mind the belief that someday I will make it. I don't know when. I don't know if it'll be today, tomorrow, the next day, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I'm not saying that like I never feel like quitting, but I honestly do believe that someday it will happen. And that belief is what causes me to work on it 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes more hours per day, right? Even though there's no immediate results. And if you adopt this mentality, essentially of a slave who has no choice, sorry dog, you're never gonna make it. You know, you're not gonna make it. I don't know what to tell you. Like, slaves don't make it. Slaves who believe they're slaves don't make it. It's the slaves who believe that they can acquire their freedom, or that they're actually, they don't deserve to be slaves, they deserve to be free men and have control over their life. Those are the ones who are going to make it.
Situation. Then you don't have to spend nearly as much controlling them directly. Those cows who become dependent upon the stolen largesse of the farmer will violently oppose any questioning of the virtue of human ownership. And the intellectual and artistic classes, always and forever dependent upon the farmers, will say to anyone who demands freedom from ownership, you will harm your fellow cows. The livestock are thus kept enclosed by shifting the moral responsibility for the destructiveness of the violent system to those who demand real freedom. The third phase is to invent continual external threats so that the frightened livestock cling to the protection of the farmers. This system of human farming is now nearing its end. The terrible tragedies of modern Western economic systems has occurred not in spite of, but because of past economic freedoms. The massive increases in Western wealth throughout the 19th century resulted from economic freedoms. And it was this very increase in wealth that fed the size and power of the state. Whenever the livestock become exponentially more productive, you get a corresponding increase in the number of farmers and their dependents. The growth of the state is always proportional to the preceding economic freedoms. Economic freedoms create wealth, and the wealth attracts more thieves and political parasites, whose greed then destroys the economic freedoms. In other words, freedom metastasizes the cancer of the state. The government that starts off the smallest will always end up the largest. This is why there can be no viable and sustainable alternative to a truly free and peaceful society. A society without political rulers, without human ownership, without the violence of taxation and statism. To be truly free is both very easy and very hard. We avoid the horror of our enslavement because it is so painful to see it directly. We dance around the endless violence of our dying system because we fear the attacks of our fellow livestock. But we can only be kept in the cages we refuse to see. Wake up. To see the farm is to leave it.
Okay, very poetic. Interesting piece of content, I guess. But are you asking me what do I think about this being an accurate representation of reality as described by this eloquent, anonymous YouTube creator? Like, so I guess if no, I do not, right? Sure, you can present certain video clips in an order while you use vague general statements about how the world is, you know, I'm saying unfair, I'm maybe putting words in his mouth, but let's say unfair and shouldn't be this way and it should be another way. But the problem here is that he doesn't clearly define the problem, and he doesn't clearly define any solution. He's just saying in very vague general terms, like clearly defining the problem, and I guess he had like some infographics on there, but like clearly defining the problem would be something like the increase in government spending by the US government on military, like to improve the military, is directly proportional to the decreased quality of life as defined by XYZ in this, and this country, or this group of countries, or this continent. And the solution to that is blah, right? There's none of that in here. This is like, humans are livestock. It used to be different. Now people are controlled by having a job. And if you want to quit your job, then your life will be bad. So like, let's break out of society. Here's a clip of a bird flying away. Like, there's no substance here. Like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, what do you actually, where's the follow-up to this? Now that said, like, let's take this at face value and let's assume that I actually understand what he's trying to say in this video, which is the system is unfair. It shouldn't be like this, and we should all stop participating so that the powers that be, politicians, whatever, take it seriously and institute a top-down change as opposed to a bottom-up change, which I already don't like, right? Like, what do you expect to happen? Like, all of a sudden, all these politicians are gonna get together and be like, you know what? You know, anonymous YouTuber, you're absolutely right. We're going to change everything from the top down, go completely against like the relatively free market that we have, and make all these changes, which, by the way, that's why communism doesn't work, because it's a top-down government, centralized. Whereas, you know, American democracy, let's call it, is, I don't want to say it's bottom up, but at least individuals have the freedom to, you know, go about their daily life and start businesses and exist in the world as long as they are not violent towards their fellow man. I feel like corruption is limited, or corruption is at least limited to the point where you need to be extremely clever and creative in order to be corrupt in whatever your field is. Legal system on point. Like, you know, do you live in, Prashant is an Indian name, I'm assuming, right? Do you live in India? Like, I actually don't know. But if you're American, dog, like, have you traveled? Have you been to the rest of the world? Do you know what the rest of the world is like? Like, go anywhere else, like, tell me you'd rather live there, actually. Kind of ironic, because I don't live in America currently and have no plans to go back there in the near future, but I appreciate America for what it is, because I've seen the rest of the world, and there's a reason why they call it the American dream, and why people from all over the world want to move to America, or Canada, fine. But like, to be real, Canada is kind of America, you know what I mean? Canada's like a state in America that has a lot of money and a low population, low-ish population. Anyway, am I going to say this video is nonsense? Kind of. But like, you know, what do I feel like I'm enslaved? No. Like, do you have a smartphone, dog? Do you have an iPhone? Then you're not a slave. You have the entire history of the human race's information in this little phone that you can access in seconds. Like, what excuse do you have for not making it in the world? You have none. I'm not talking about you personally. I'm saying in general, everybody. Anyway, thank you for telling me to do this video. You guys got any more? Let me know. Peace.